When you hear the phrase business theft, what's the very first movie scene that plays in your head?
Oh, I mean, it's definitely the guy in the black ski mask,
Yeah.
right? Like 3.0 AM,
Yeah, exactly. 3.0 AM.
prying open a window with a crowbar, grabbing the cash register, and jumping into a getaway van. The classic external threat.
Right, the stranger in the night. But if we actually look at the data and the massive stack of security manuals, industry transcripts, and locksmith guides we have on the table today, that Hollywood image is statistically just the lesser of two evils.
It really is.
Because often the call is coming from inside the house, or, well, inside the office in this case.
Yeah, the data on internal shrinkage, which is just the corporate polite term for theft by your own employees or contractors,
Yeah.
it often completely dwarfs external burglary. And it's insidious because these aren't strangers breaking in.
No, they're not.
These are people who have keys, they know the alarm codes, they belong there.
And that is exactly what we are unpacking today. We are doing a deep dive into internal theft prevention, but we aren't talking about, background checks or awkward HR conversations.
I'm talking about the hardware.
The physics of the door, exactly. And the surprisingly strategic role a commercial locksmith plays in stopping theft before it even starts.
Which is a really fascinating angle because most business owners view locks as a commodity. You buy a door, it comes with a lock, you turn the key, and you think you're safe. End of story.
Right.
But if you dig into the MIT Guide to Lockpicking
Mm-hmm.
and the industry transcripts we've been analyzing, you quickly realize a lock isn't just a latch. It's a system for managing human behavior.
Managing behavior and, more importantly, managing access. We're going to look at everything from the geometry of master keys, which is way more complex than I thought, by the way,
Oh, absolutely.
to the psychology of audit trails. The mission here is to move you from being reactive, like panicking and changing locks at midnight because you fired a manager, to being proactive, where the system itself just inherently prevents the vulnerability.
Which is the holy grail of
Right.
security, right? You want the architecture to do the heavy lifting so you don't have to constantly worry about it.
Exactly. Now, before we crack this open, we really have to mention who is helping us navigate this landscape. If you are listening to this in Los Angeles and you start realizing, uh-oh, my security is actually a house of cards, you need to call West Point Locksmith. You can reach them at 310-295-4040.
Yeah, these guys are the real deal. When we talk about the difference between a handyman with a drill and a true security architect, West Point is the latter.
Absolutely. They have 5-star reviews, they cover all of Los Angeles, and they're fast, reliable, and professional. From emergency lockouts to rekeying, smart locks, and car key replacements, they're available 204/7. Whether it's the panic scenarios we're about to discuss or installing high-end restricted key systems, West Point Locksmith is the team to keep your home, business, and vehicle secure. Again, that number is 310-295-4040.
Keep that number handy for sure.
Sure. So let's get into the reality of internal theft. I was reading through one of the source transcripts, and there was this anecdote from a business owner that really set the stage for me. He said he had to, quote, take away tools from an employee because he was robbing the team. And it struck me that internal theft isn't always someone taking a $20 bill out of petty cash.
No, and that's a crucial distinction to make early on. In the locksmith and security world, theft is a broad spectrum.
Yeah.
It's inventory, it's expensive power tools, it's data, intellectual property. If you look at the source material regarding business operations, a massive pain point is simply knowing who has access to those assets.
It's the uncertainty that kills you.
Precisely. The moment an employee leaves, whether they quit or get fired, if you don't know exactly what keys they have or if they made copies of those keys, your security posture collapses to zero. You're completely exposed.
That brings us directly to the manager left scenario. One of the sources, a locksmith named Patrick, mentioned that this is essentially his bread and butter. He gets a frantic call, something like, my manager just walked out, he has the keys to everything, help me.
And that panic is completely justified. This connects to the fundamental concept of key control. If you cannot account for every piece of metal that opens your doors, you don't actually have security. You have the illusion of security.
Right.
And for a business owner, the illusion is worse than having no lock at all because it makes you complacent.
So let's talk about the mechanics of fixing that illusion. The owner calls the locksmith and says, rekey the place. I think a lot of people assume that means ripping the doorknobs off the wood and buying brand new hardware. Is that what actually happens?
Not if you hire a professional.
Yeah.
This is a really common misconception that costs businesses a ton of money. According to the source material, rekeying is essentially a software update for your hardware. You don't throw away the computer, you just change the code.
Walk us through the physics of that. What is actually happening inside the lock when they do that?
So inside your lock cylinder, that's the little plug where you insert the key, there's a stack of pins. These are tiny metal tumblers of different lengths. When you insert your key, the cuts on the key lift those pins to a perfectly straight line, which is called the shear line.
And when they line up, the lock turns.
Exactly. When a locksmith rekeys a cylinder, they aren't changing the lock itself. They literally take the cylinder out, dump out the old pins, and insert a new set of pins that matches a completely different key cut.
And what about the old key?
The old key, we often call it the O key, might still slide into the keyhole just fine. It fits in the slot. But it won't turn. The internal geometry has changed. The code has been reset.
That seems significantly cheaper than buying 20 new heavy-duty commercial levers.
Oh, it's a fraction of the cost. You're paying for the labor and a few cents worth of brass pins rather than hundreds of dollars in hardware. It's the standard first step in securing a building after any personnel changes.
But here is where the plot thickens for me, because I think every business owner at some point dreams of the master key. It feels like the ultimate power move, right? I want one key on my ring that opens the front door, the warehouse, the bathroom, the supply closet, the office. I don't want a heavy janitor-style key ring.
It is incredibly convenient. It's highly efficient.
There's always a but-in security.
Always. As we learned from the MIT Guide to Lockpicking, which is just a fascinating document to read, through convenience is the enemy of security. When you introduce a master key system, you are structurally weakening your locks.
Explain that. How does having one key that works everywhere make the individual locks less safe?
It comes down to those pins we just talked about. In a standard lock, say your front door at home, there is one way to open it. One specific height for each pin that lines up at the shear line. One code. But in a master key system, you need that lock to open for two different keys. You need it to open for the specific change key for that specific office and the master key for the owner. To make that happen, the locksmith has to insert a tiny spacer, often called a master wafer, into the pin stack.
Like a shim.
Yeah, think of it like creating a second gap, a second solution to the puzzle. By adding that spacer, you're creating a second shear line in the lock.
So you're doubling the number of ways the lock can open.
In simple terms, yes. And mechanically, the MIT Guide is very clear about this. The more shear lines you have, the easier the lock is to pick. There is more slop in the system, but honestly, the bigger risk isn't even picking. It's ghost keys.
Ghost keys? That sounds ominous. What is a ghost key?
It's a mathematical side effect. Because you have multiple gaps in the pin stack to accommodate the master key, you can sometimes accidentally create a combination that works, even though it wasn't intended to. If the system isn't calculated perfectly, and this happens a lot with amateur locksmithing, you might have a situation where a lower-level employee's key accidentally opens the server room.
Just by pure luck, because the pins lined up on the wrong shear line.
Exactly. It's called uncontrolled cross-keying. You handed the intern a key to the front door, but because the master wafer's inside the server room lock, his key acts like a skeleton key. And you would never know. You sleep soundly, thinking the server room is secure, but mechanically, it's wide open to the intern.
That is terrifying. You're handing out access thinking it's restricted, but the actual physics of the lock are betraying you.
That's why designing a master key system isn't just cutting keys, it's mathematics. It requires a chart and a true professional to ensure those collisions do not happen.
Okay, so assuming we have a pro design the system perfectly, we still have the issue of the employee running down to the local hardware store and making a copy for $2. How do we stop that?
That is the single biggest vulnerability in physical security right there. You give a key to a shift supervisor, he makes a copy for his girlfriend, or just keeps a spare just in case. When you fire him, he hands back your key. But the copy is still out there.
And writing "do not duplicate" on the key, I mean, I feel like that's just a suggestion, right?
It's a polite request. It has zero legal or physical force. Most of those automated kiosks in grocery stores, they can't read English anyway. They just scan the profile and cut the key. The machine doesn't care.
So what is the actual solution?
You have to move to a restricted key system.
Unpack that for us. What makes it restricted?
It's all about the keyway, the actual shape of the slot the key goes into. In a restricted system, the manufacturer holds a patent on that shape. They only sell the key blanks to authorized locksmiths who have signed a strict contract.
So if I take a restricted key to a big box hardware store,
They physically cannot cut it. They don't have the blank. It simply won't fit in their machine.
yeah.
And legally, they aren't even allowed to possess the blank.
So it creates a closed loop.
Exactly. If you authorize 5 keys to be cut, You know for a mathematical fact there are only 5 keys in existence. If an employee hands one back, you don't have to rekey the building. They couldn't have duplicated it because physically the supply chain for that blank is locked down.
That seems like the baseline standard every business should have, especially in a city like Los Angeles where retail and office turnover can be so high.
It really should be the standard. And speaking of Los Angeles, this is exactly the kind of high-level architecture West Point Locksmith specializes in. They don't just come out and fix a jammed door. They design restricted key systems that give you that full chain of custody over your access.
If you want to stop unauthorized duplication, you really need to talk to them.
Yeah.
310-295-4040. It's the difference between hoping your business is secure and actually knowing it is.
Right.
Now, we've talked a lot about metal keys, but we are living in the future here. Everything is digital. I'm seeing more and more businesses switch to access control fobs, card readers, smart locks. Is that just for convenience, or is there a real security upgrade happening there?
Oh, it's a massive leap forward. And it's not just about using keys. The sources highlight one specific feature that changes everything, and that's the audit trail.
The digital paper trail.
Yeah, think about the metal key scenario. If you come in on Monday morning and a laptop is missing and there's no sign of forced entry, you know someone used a key. But who? Was it the cleaner? The manager? The intern? The metal key is silent. It doesn't tell stories.
But an access control system does.
It logs everything. John Smith, backdoor 2.14 a.m.
Yeah.
You have your suspect immediately. But more importantly, the employees know the system is logging them.
So it's a psychological deterrent as well.
A huge one. Internal theft drops significantly when people know their entry is time-stamped. It removes the anonymity of the crime. If they know Big Brother is watching the door, they are far less likely to walk out with the inventory.
Plus, I assume it completely solves the manager-left panic we talked about earlier.
Instantly. This is the revocation benefit. If you fire someone, you don't need to call a locksmith to rekey 50 doors. You log into the dashboard, often right from your phone or your laptop, and you just deactivate their fob. Click. Done. Their credential is now just a piece of useless plastic.
That is the definition of proactive security. But I do have to play devil's advocate here. I was reading the Locksmith Tales section of our source material, and there was a story about a business that got totally burned by technology. They had a magnetic lock system, a maglock, and the door was just left wide open.
Ah, yes, the passage mode error. This is a classic example of why you can't just buy this stuff online and screw it into the wall yourself.
What exactly happened there?
So many electronic systems have a passage mode or a day mode. It's designed to keep the door unlocked during business hours so customers can just walk in without buzzing. In this specific case, either the schedule was programmed wrong or someone toggled a switch and just forgot.
So the business is closed, everyone goes home, but the electronic brain of the door thinks, hey, I'm supposed to be open.
Correct. The magnet never engaged. The source mentioned that customers, and potentially thieves, were just walking in and out while the owners were panicking, trying to figure out why the door wouldn't lock. They thought it was physically broken.
And it wasn't broken at all. It was doing exactly what it was told to do.
Exactly. It was a programming error.
Yeah.
The locksmith had to come out, diagnose that the software logic was overriding the physical security, and reset the system. It's a stark reminder that smart locks add a layer of complexity. You need a pro who understands both the mechanical bolt and the software logic.
Which actually leads perfectly into a specific rule I found in the transcript from Jeff Moss. Now, Jeff has an interesting background because he was in IT before becoming a locksmith, so he really sees both sides. He has a hard rule about server rooms.
The standalone system rule, yes. This is critical for anyone listening who has high-value assets, whether that's a server rack, a records room with patient files, or a heavy-duty safe.
What is the rule?
That room should not be on the master key system, period.
Wait, really? Not even the owner's master key should open it.
Ideally, you want to completely segregate it. But certainly, it shouldn't be accessible by the general master key that the cleaning crew or the shift manager holds.
Why is that?
It's about limiting the blast radius. If the night janitor loses his master key ring, that's bad. You have to rekey the office doors. But if that master key also opens the server room, where you keep your unencrypted hard drives, now you have a catastrophe on your hands.
It's tiered security. You're creating a physical firewall within the building.
Exactly. The server room should have its own unique keyway, or a high-security digital credential that is totally separate from the front door. It ensures that a lapse in general security doesn't compromise your core assets. It's all about compartmentalization.
That makes so much sense. I feel like a lot of listeners are looking at their keychains right now and realizing their master key might actually be a liability.
It's a very common realization during a security audit.
And if you are having that realization, this is exactly where West Point Locksmith comes in. They can do that lock audit. They can look at your server room, your front door, and your employee hierarchy and design a system that actually segments that risk.
And they can tell you exactly where your blast radius is too big and show you how to shrink it.
Exactly. Give them a call at 310-295-4040. They are true experts in these commercial upgrades and smart lock installations. But this brings up a really sensitive topic we need to address before we wrap. Trust.
Yeah. This is the elephant in the room for the industry.
We are talking about inviting someone into your business to see your security secrets. You are giving them the master codes. You are showing them where the server room is. How do you know you can trust the locksmith?
This is a major issue. The sources we have discuss locksmith scams at length. It is the dark underbelly of the trade.
I was reading about the lead gen problem. Explain how that works, because it sounds incredibly deceptive.
It's industrial scale deception. There are call centers, often located overseas, that flood Google Maps with thousands of fake locksmith listings. They use generic names like AAA local locksmith or city best keys. They use fake addresses, sometimes just an empty lot or a gas station.
So when you search and call, you think you're calling a mom and pop shop down the street.
But you're actually routing to a massive dispatch center in another country. They quote you a lowball price, say $29 to get you hooked. That's the bait. Then they send out a subcontractor.
Who is this subcontractor?
Usually an untrained guy in a personal vehicle, unmarked, no uniform. He shows up, looks at your lock, and says, oh, this is a high security lock. I can't pick it. I have to drill it. And suddenly that $29 becomes $400.
Classic bait and switch.
And they destroy your perfectly good lock in the process. It's predatory. And think about it. You just let a totally unvetted stranger drill out the lock to your business.
So how do we vet them? If I'm a business owner, what are the green flags I should look for to avoid these scammers?
Certification is number one. The source material heavily mentions ALOA, the Associated Locksmiths of America. A real security professional will often have ALOA certifications. This means they've undergone background checks, they've passed rigorous competency exams, and they are accountable.
And insurance, I assume.
Crucial. You need general liability and professional liability insurance. If a locksmith is installing a heavy mag lock above a door and it falls and hits a customer, or if they drill into a door and shatter a $2,000 glass pane, you need to know they are insured. The scam locksmiths. They disappear the moment there is a problem. Their phone number just goes dead.
The sources also mentioned the visuals, branded vehicles, uniforms, that sort of thing.
Yes, a professional takes pride in the brand. If someone shows up in a rusted-out sedan with a magnetic sign slapped on the door crookedly, be very wary. But the best advice, the absolute best advice from the expert sources, is to build the relationship before the emergency happens.
That's that proactive theme again.
Don't wait until you are locked out at midnight to frantically search Google. That's when you get scammed. Find a local brick-and-mortar shop now. Go meet them. Have them cut a spare key. Put their number in your phone.
Treat them like you would your lawyer or your accountant.
Exactly. You wouldn't hire a random lawyer off a telephone pole flyer. Don't do it with the person securing your business.
That is such solid advice. It's about vetting your vendors, just like you vet your employees.
Precisely.
So let's bring this all together. We've covered a lot of ground today, from pin stacks to scammers. If I'm a business owner in Los Angeles, what is my immediate checklist after listening to this?
First, audit your keys. If you are handing out standard keys that can be copied at a grocery store kiosk, stop. You need to move to a restricted key system immediately to gain control over duplication.
Okay, restricted keys. Number 2.
Digital audit trails. If your budget allows, upgrade the main perimeter to access control. You need to know who is coming in and when. The psychological deterrent alone is worth the investment.
Number 3.
The server room rule. Isolate your most sensitive areas. Do not let the general master key open the safe room. Create that firewall.
And finally,
the relationship. Verify your locksmith. Look for ALOA certification, check their insurance, and make sure they are a legitimate local business.
and I know just the place to start that relationship. We've mentioned them throughout because they align perfectly with everything we've discussed today. West Point Locksmith.
They check every single box on that list.
They really do. Serving all of Los Angeles, 5-star reviews, fast, reliable, and professional. And they handle everything from automotive key replacements to heavy commercial security and smart locks. If you are worried about internal theft, don't wait for it to happen. Call them today at 310-295-4040. That's 310-295-4040. They're available 24/7.
It's the smartest call you can make for your peace of mind.
Now, before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought to chew on. We talked about master keys earlier, and this really stuck with me.
Yeah, it's a provocative thought. You lock your front door every night to keep strangers out. You invest in alarms and cameras. But have you ever actually checked your own master key system? Do you know for a fact that the key you gave the night cleaner doesn't accidentally open your safe due to a ghost key error?
Convenience is the enemy of security.
It really is.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Stay safe out there and secure those keys.
Stay secure.